The pressure is on the Philadelphia Phillies team to upgrade to a true World Series favorite, and Dave Dombrowski has answered the call, bringing in Austin Hayes as his first move at the deadline, who could be the perfect platoon partner for Brandon Marsh in left field, and brings a couple other areas of strengths to this Phillies team as well. They did not have to dip into their pool of prospects, only trading away Seranthony Dominguez and Christian Pache, and it's also a move that does indicate the first of many to come. We're going to break everything down for you right here on Phillies Digest, me and my guy Luke Arcaini. Now, before we dive fully into it, I do want to make sure that you guys are smashing that subscribe button right now. That 98.6% of you guys tuning in these videos have not hit that subscribe button just yet. Let's keep this Phillies family growing because it is good times, and let's get right into it. So, Luke Arcaini, right off the bat here, what is your initial reaction to Austin Hayes being a member of this Phillies team?
Yeah, this is a really great move for me. In multiple aspects. Number one, that is immediately your platoon partner for Brandon Marsh. A guy that can hit left-handed pitching. I believe he's hitting .328 this year against lefties. He really hits the ball hard against lefties, which is something that the Phillies are in dire need of right now. Number two, they didn't have to give up any prospects in this deal, which leads me to believe that a big-time relief pitcher is going to be on the way soon. I think they're really saving their assets for a big impact guy. Whether that is, maybe they're still in on Luis Robert, or maybe they're going for a guy like we already talked about in Tanner Scott, or another big-time reliever. There have been a few other names thrown out there. So really for me, you're getting your Brandon Marsh platoon without giving up a single prospect. Obviously, in this deal, like we saw, the Phillies traded for Austin Hayes, and they gave up Christian Pache and Seranthony Dominguez. Two guys who Pache wasn't doing much here. He sort of caught fire last year a little bit. He was a big piece off of the bench last year for us in 2023, but this year has really struggled, not really giving much to the offense this year. And then a guy like Seranthony Dominguez, who was probably the best bullpen arm in 2022 for us in that first playoff run of this little road here, but just couldn't find it last year and just hasn't really been able to get back to that elite bullpen role. So the Orioles are getting a bullpen arm that I think they can save. His stuff is still, I think, salvageable, Seranthony, and I think Baltimore can maybe find that. But definitely, this was a trade that fit both teams for me.
Yeah, and you hit on a lot there. For starters, the bullpen conversation, this only reinforces the belief that this Phillies team needs a reliever, as you traded away a guy that, say what you want about Seranthony, that sure, he was not a guy that had his best stuff or was pitching at the peak of what he had for this team, but he likely would have been a guy that was still pitching some pretty key innings for this Phillies team come playoff time. So you absolutely need to upgrade, replace that, and hopefully improve that there. It's also very interesting to me to see that this deal going down between the Orioles and Phillies, two teams that have legitimate chances going to the World Series. That I sent out a tweet kind of in joking here, but I kind of mean it, that this trade may ultimately be decided by a high leverage situation where Seranthony Dominguez is pitching to Austin Hayes. They're very much as well where that plays itself out in the World Series there. So that'd be very much there. I do feel bad for Seranthony because he is a guy who, was very beloved in the Phillies clubhouse, is a guy who is a success story when you think about where he come from, betting on himself, and definitely played in some key moments for this Phillies team. We remember the going to the sleep motion after closing out a game. Legendary stuff there. But the reality is he wasn't a guy that was cracking this, and there is a bigger need in the outfield there. Now, Luke, to throw it to you a little bit here, what's interesting to me, this is a pretty clear-cut platoon with Brandon Marsh, that you're looking at this guy as the answer to left-handed pitchers. What doesn't change is this equation with center field. Now, I know Hayes has played a little bit of center field in his days, but what does this mean to you? Do you think this is another move coming towards the outfield? Do you think Rojas' job is safe? And to me, while I think it's pretty clear that Rojas is the long-term better baseball player than Pache, I do think it is notable that it's clear that Rojas is sticking on this roster, at least for now.
Yeah, so I don't think Rojas is at least going anywhere yet. Is there a possibility that he could... I think they could still be in on Luis Robert. I don't think that deal is off the table just yet. I think that is still an option. And I think it's a sort of thing where they could look like, hey, if they're going to trade for a reliever, right, and you go look at Miami for Tanner Scott, could Miami be like, we want Johan Rojas in this deal? And if that's the case, you do it, and then maybe you go all in for Robert, or maybe you go all in for another guy. But I wouldn't necessarily say Johan Rojas is 100% safe, but I would say that I wouldn't see him going anywhere. I think they value Rojas's defense. But once again, this really is a perfect platoon guy with Austin Hayes and Brandon Marsh. Austin Hayes this year against left-handed pitching, 328, 394, 500 for an 894 OPS. Brandon Marsh against right-handed pitching, 279, 360, 482 with an 842 OPS. So you're basically getting a left fielder now that's going to have around an 870 OPS, like if you average those out based on those two guys. That's really good from what they had compared to Whit Merrifield and Christian Pache and all those guys. So the Phillies got better today, which I think is the biggest deal right now. And I think they're going to continue to get better. I don't think Dave Dombrowski's done it all. And I truly do think that the biggest part of this trade for me was keeping every single prospect because I truly do think there is something big coming.
Yeah, absolutely. This does feel like, this isn't the home run grand slam like swing when you step up to the plate. That this was a nice single in my eyes. You improved the team, but you were certainly not making that all-in pitch. Now, with all that being said, if we get through this trade deadline and this was the only move, I'm going to be very disappointed in this Phillies team. And I don't think that's going to be the case for all the reasons you just laid out by not giving into any of these prospects. And to be perfectly honest here, the more that I've digested this and thought about it from the trade deadline standpoint and from this Phillies team standpoint, I don't care about preserving prospects at this point in time. Yes, you got to keep in mind your future, but I just think it's a little short-sighted to believe that the World Series window is going to be open forever. There is as good of a chance as you could possibly think about for a baseball team to win the World Series as this specific Phillies team. So if that means trading away a guy that can help your team 3 or 4 years down the line, you do it right now because you don't know how long that window stays open. And the more that I've kind of thought about it, I truly feel that way. That for all these prospects that do turn out, there is a Dominic Brown. And even a guy like Christian Pache, who we see just did not have it this year. 0 home runs, 9 RBIs, 288 on base percentage, and 104 at-bats. A guy that really found himself out of the opportunity at all. Like Yohan Rojas, for all the complaints, I think it was pretty clear-cut how much better he was, or at least impacting winning on this Phillies team this season. But Pache was a guy who was a really highly regarded prospect and has not panned out the way that it's planned. So for me, I think you absolutely go all in. I am slightly disappointed we're breaking up the Stay Loose and Sexy boys with Brandon Marsh and Christian Pache there, but we will see how it all shakes out. And I wanted to ask a little bit about Marsh here. So when he first traded to him, I think my expectations versus the reality of him, I think his glove's been worse, but his bat has been far better. Do you think there's a world where he slides to center and we're talking about a potential outfield rotation like that, or fully dependent on how things play out from here?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something you're going to see.
Okay.
I think there's going to be some days where Rojas is out. And listen, I think they're going to give Austin Hayes a chance to hit right-handed pitching. I don't think he's just going to just ride the bench every day against righties. Like I think there's going to be some games in August now where I think they're going to give him a shot. Because one, he's a right-handed bat. The Phillies need right-handed bats. It's that was another thing for me today, is that I'm happy that this platoon guy was a right-hander. Just adding another right-handed bat. So the interesting thing right now, I saw this earlier from Jason Stark. Austin Hayes only has 3 home runs so far this year. But his hard hit percentage is the highest it's ever been in his career for the last 7 years. And once again, I think Austin Hayes is a victim of being hurt by this redesign in Camden Yards, right? That left field wall got a lot deeper over the last few years. And like Jason Stark said, according to StatCast, he'd have 11 more home runs in Philadelphia than Baltimore over the last 3 years.
Okay.
So listen, I think he's going to get a shot to not hit just lefties. I think he's going to be out there occasionally against right-handed pitching. And I think that's where you could maybe see a Austin Hayes in left, Brandon Marsh in center, Nick Castellanos in right. I don't think it's going to happen every day. I still think against left-handed pitching, you'll see for the most time at this point, Hayes, Rojas, Castellanos, at least for now, right? On August 5th, I could be talking about Hayes, Luis Robert, Nick Castellanos, right? Right now, you just don't know yet because, once again, I still don't think they're out of the Luis Robert thing right now. But bottom line is this team got better, like I already said. They got better. They didn't lose any prospects, and they got a guy who I still think – I think even a change of scenery can just help a guy. And we've seen it so many times.
Absolutely.
With Brandon Marsh, with Christian Pache last year, right? Christian Pache was a number one prospect. Like, he was the top ranked prospect when he came into the league. He was terrible with the A's. He was terrible with the Braves. And he came here and he had a pretty big impact for us last year. He hit over 300 last year against left-handed pitching. So I think a change of scenery, right? And for a Baltimore team that really they just have a big cluster of outfielders right now, right? They have Colton Cowser, Heston Kjerstad, Ryan O'Hearn, Cedric Mullins. Obviously, we know Baltimore. It feels like once a week they have a new top prospect that's being called up, right? And these last few ones have been lefties in those guys like Heston and Colton Cowser.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a change of scenery here definitely can help a guy like an Austin Hayes. And I'm excited. I'm excited to have a serious platoon now in left field because now having guys that can every day have an OPS around 850, it's going to be big for a team whose outfield OPS this year was near the bottom of the league.
Yeah, absolutely. So welcome to Philadelphia, Austin Hayes there. We did want to attack this video kind of specifically about this trade, what he brings to his team and what to expect from here. We also did drop a video earlier talking about Tanner Scott specifically. That's absolutely a guy that is still in play for this Phillies team. Yeah, send everything. Let's make it happen. But we're also going to drop a video talking a little bit more about what guys make sense from here. Attack, like filling in the gaps in the way that we're saying. That this very much is a start the process trade, but this is not a completed World Series team trade. So make sure that you are staying tuned for that. Once again, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. 98.6% of you guys not hitting that subscribe button just yet. So got to get that Phillies Digest family growing. Plenty more to break down and plenty of great baseball to be played. So stay tuned for it all right here on Phillies Digest. I'll be talking to you next time. Peace.